There comes a moment in every believer's life when God begins to unveil who they truly are, not who the world says you are, not who your mistakes tried to define you as, but the real you, the one God formed before the foundations of the earth. Right now, you may feel hidden, overlooked, or misunderstood. You may be walking through a season where everything you thought you knew about yourself seems to be fading. But hear me, this is not the end of your story. This is the sacred moment before your revelation. God is about to show your true identity. There are seasons in life when God seems to hide you from the spotlight, when nothing appears to be moving, and when your prayers echo back as if heaven is silent. These are not wasted seasons. They are holy seasons. They are the hidden chapters in the story of your destiny. Before God reveals who you truly are to the world, He prepares you in the secret place. In those moments of obscurity, when you feel invisible and forgotten, God is doing His deepest work within you. The silence is not rejection. It is divine protection. The waiting is not punishment. It is preparation. You are not being delayed. You are being developed. Every seed that produces fruit must first die in the dark. A seed buried in the ground seems lost, hidden beneath the surface where no one can see it. But it is in that hiddenness that transformation begins. What looks like isolation is actually incubation. God allows you to be planted, not buried. There's a difference. Being buried is the end, but being planted is the beginning of something new. The soil that covers you is not meant to suffocate you, but to strengthen your roots. When God hides you, He is protecting the purity of what He is growing in you from being destroyed by premature exposure. The truth is, if God revealed you before you were ready, the very thing meant to bless you could break you. Many people want the platform, but not the process. They want the promise without the pruning. But God loves you too much to reveal your destiny before your character can carry it. In hidden seasons, He refines your motives, tests your faithfulness, and builds endurance in your spirit. He allows pressure and pruning to remove everything that cannot sustain the weight of His calling. It is in that quiet classroom of obscurity that humility, patience, and integrity are born. In those unseen moments, when you keep doing what's right even though no one notices, heaven is watching. When you choose faithfulness over fame, God takes note. The world may not applaud your consistency, but heaven does. God measures greatness not by visibility, but by obedience. Every prayer whispered in secret, every tear shed in surrender, every act of kindness that no one saw, they are all forming the foundation of your destiny. Nothing done in the dark is wasted when it is done for God. Think of David. Before he ever held a crown, he held a harp. While his brothers were in the spotlight, David was hidden in the fields tending sheep. No one saw him when he fought off lions and bears. No one clapped when he wrote songs to God under the stars. But in those lonely nights, when it was just David and God, something powerful was happening. God was shaping the heart of a king long before anyone else recognized it. When the moment finally came for David to face Goliath, he didn't find courage on the battlefield. He brought it with him from the pasture. The victories no one saw prepared him for the victory everyone would see. That's what hidden seasons do. They prepare you for public purpose through private faithfulness. Maybe you're in that same kind of season right now. You're working hard, staying faithful, loving God, but nothing seems to change. You see others being promoted while you remain unseen. You wonder if God has forgotten you. But He hasn't. You're not being overlooked. You're being observed by heaven. God is watching how you handle this hidden season because it reveals who you are becoming. Every moment of waiting is a test of trust. Every delay is an invitation to go deeper with God. When you can worship, when no one is watching, serve when no one says thank you, and remain faithful when nothing makes sense, that's when God says, now I can trust you. Hidden seasons teach you dependence. They strip away the need for validation and replace it with confidence rooted in God's approval alone. They train you to hear God's voice above the noise of the world. And when the time comes for Him to bring you into visibility, you won't be defined by the applause of people, but anchored in the presence of God. That's why hidden seasons are holy. They make you unshakable. When the fullness of time arrives, God will reveal you. What He does suddenly will be the result of what He has done secretly for years. The people who once overlooked you will see the evidence of his hand on your life. But you won't rise with pride. You'll rise with purpose because you'll know it wasn't your talent that brought you there. It was God's timing. So don't despise your hidden season. Don't rush what God is refining. You may be unseen, but you are not unknown. You may be planted deep in the soil, but the roots of greatness are growing strong beneath the surface. God hides his greatest treasures until the perfect moment to reveal them. And when he finally brings you into the light, you'll realize that everything in the dark was worth it. The silence, the waiting, the stretching, all of it was holy. All of it was love. God was never withholding your destiny. He was preparing you for it. One of the most liberating truths you can ever discover is that your identity is not found in what you do, but in who you belong to. The world constantly measures people by their performance, their achievements, their appearance, their status, or their reputation. From a young age, we are taught that what we accomplish determines who we are. If we succeed, we feel worthy. If we fail, we feel forgotten. Yet, God never designed identity to be built on performance. He designed it to be built on relationship. You were never meant to earn your worth. You were meant to inherit it through your connection with him. The enemy's greatest strategy is to convince you that you are what you do, or worse, what has been done to you. If he can get you to believe that your failures define you, then he can rob you of the confidence to live out your purpose. That's why so many people live with hidden shame, constantly striving for approval, trying to fix what only grace can heal. But God's definition of you is not based on your record. It's based on his redemption. He doesn't look at your mistakes and label you broken. He looks at you through the blood of Jesus and calls you beloved. You are not your struggle, your past, or your performance. You are a child of God, chosen before the foundation of the world. When you belong to God, your value is settled. You no longer need to chase validation from people who didn't create you. The applause of the world might make you feel important for a moment, but the affirmation of heaven gives you peace that cannot be shaken. God is more interested in who you are becoming than what you are achieving. He's not impressed by your titles or your trophies. He's after your heart. When you begin to understand that your worth comes from belonging to him, not performing for him, you stop striving and start resting in his grace. That's where your true identity begins to bloom. Many people spend their whole lives wearing masks, trying to meet expectations, trying to fit into boxes the world has built. But God is peeling those layers away. Every label that was placed on you, not good enough, too broken, a failure, a nobody, is being stripped off by his love. He never called you by your mistake. He calls you by your destiny. The more you walk with him, the more he removes the false names you've carried and replaces them with truth. He whispers over you, what heaven has always known, you are mine. When that truth begins to take root in your spirit, fear starts to lose its grip. You no longer fear failure because you realize it doesn't define you. You no longer fear rejection because you know you already belong. You no longer fear comparison because your identity isn't competing with anyone else's. It's secure in God's hands. This is what it means to live free, not trying to prove your worth, but living from a place of already being loved. Imagine a child who spends years trying to earn their parents' love by doing everything perfectly, getting good grades, behaving flawlessly, never making mistakes. But one day that child finally breaks down and cries, confessing their exhaustion and fear of never being enough. The parent kneels, takes their hand, and says, "You could never earn my love because it was never for sale. You've had it all along." That's how God speaks to his children. He's not waiting for you to perform perfectly. He's waiting for you to rest in his love. A powerful example of this truth is seen in the story of the prodigal son. The younger son took his inheritance, wasted it all, and ended up feeding pigs in a distant country. Broken and ashamed, he decided to return home, rehearsing an apology in his mind. "I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me one of your hired servants." He thought his actions had disqualified him from being loved. But when his father saw him from a distance, he ran to him, embraced him, and restored him instantly. The father didn't see a servant. He saw a son. He didn't bring up his past. He covered it with grace. The son wanted to earn back what he had lost, but the father reminded him that identity is not earned, it's inherited. That's exactly what God does for us. We come to him with guilt, fear, and shame, trying to fix ourselves before we feel worthy of his love. But he meets us on the road, wraps his arms around us, and reminds us, you were never loved because you performed perfectly. You were loved because you belong to me. When you finally understand that your identity becomes unshakable. So stop defining yourself by what you do, how you perform, or what others think of you. Your job title, your bank account, your mistakes, or your reputation do not determine your value. You are who God says you are, loved, chosen, redeemed, and destined for greatness. The more you walk with him, the more your identity shines through, not the one shaped by pain or performance, but the one that's been sealed by his promise. You don't have to earn love when you already belong to the one who is love itself. And when you finally live from that truth, you stop striving to be someone and start becoming who you were always meant to be, a reflection of the heart of God. There are seasons when it seems as though God has forgotten about you, when nothing seems to make sense, when every prayer feels unanswered, and when every door you try to open stays firmly shut. But what looks like silence from heaven is often strategy from heaven. God is never inactive. Even when you can't see it, he's building something in secret. He's been aligning the right people, shaping the right opportunities, and orchestrating every detail so that when the right time comes, your life will suddenly shift. God is about to announce what he's been building quietly all along. The moments you thought were wasted, the times you cried in confusion, the years you spent waiting, none of it was lost. Every part was preparation for what is about to be revealed. When God builds in secret, he is preparing you for visibility that will carry his purpose. What he does behind the scenes ensures that when he finally brings you to the front, your character will be strong enough to handle the weight of his blessing. He doesn't just prepare blessings for you. He prepares you for the blessings. That's why some seasons seem so quiet and confusing. You're not being ignored, you're being refined. And when the refining is complete, the unveiling will be undeniable. There's a reason why God doesn't show his plans all at once. If he did, we might try to control them, rush them, or claim credit for them. But God's announcements are divine and deliberate. They happen at the exact moment when no one, not even you, can take the glory for what he's done. His timing is perfect because his purpose is precise. He reveals at the moment when your heart is humble, your spirit is ready, and your faith is unshakable. Sometimes you'll go through doors that once seemed impossible. People who never noticed you before will suddenly be drawn to your light. Opportunities will appear that make no logical sense. This is not coincidence. It's divine coordination. Heaven has been working quietly, and suddenly it will be your season of exposure, not exposure for fame, but exposure for purpose. When God announces what he's been building, it doesn't look like self-promotion. It looks like destiny unfolding. You see, God is not just revealing what you can do, he's revealing who you are. When the moment comes, the same people who once overlooked you will recognize the hand of God on your life. They will see what God has always seen, potential, power, and purpose wrapped in his grace. You won't have to strive for attention or prove your worth. What God announces, he also sustains. When his favor opens a door, no one can close it. It's like watching a masterpiece being painted. For a long time, all you see are random brush strokes, colors that don't seem to belong, patterns that make no sense. You wonder if the artist knows what he's doing. But then, in one moment, he steps back and suddenly the image becomes clear. Every line, every shade, every pause was intentional. That's how God works with your life. Every season, every delay, every disappointment was a brushstroke in the masterpiece of your destiny. And when he's ready, he'll pull back the curtain and let the world see what he's been creating in you all along. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He had dreams of greatness, yet his life took a turn that made no sense. Betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave, and imprisoned for something he didn't do. Everything seemed to go wrong. But what Joseph couldn't see was that God was building something behind the scenes. In prison, God developed Joseph's wisdom, his leadership, and his humility. While it looked like Joseph's story had ended, heaven was setting the stage for his unveiling. One day, Pharaoh had a dream that no one could interpret. Suddenly, Joseph was called out of the prison and placed in the palace. In one divine moment, God announced what he had been building in secret for years. What looked like wasted time became the foundation for divine promotion. That's how God works. He will use every chapter, even the painful ones, to prepare you for your announcement. When your season of revealing comes, it will be so clear that it could only be him. People will look at your story and say, there's no way they got there on their own. And they'll be right. It was God all along. This divine unveiling is not about status or recognition. It's about purpose. When God reveals what he's been doing, it's because he's ready to release you into assignments that will impact others. Your testimony will carry weight because it was forged in hiddenness. The humility you learned in the dark will protect you in the light. God is about to use your story as proof that his timing is perfect and his promises never fail. So if you feel unseen or forgotten, hold on. Heaven is working quietly. The stage is being set and your name is being spoken in rooms you haven't even entered yet. Every hidden season has been leading up to this moment. When God finally announces what he's been building, you won't have to force it. It will flow. You won't have to chase opportunities. They'll find you. And when people ask how it all happened, you'll simply say, it was God. You may not see it yet, but heaven is aligning everything. The waiting is almost over. The unveiling is near. God is about to reveal what he's been forming in secret, and when he does, it will not just bless you, it will announce you. When God begins to reveal your true identity, it's never just for your benefit. He doesn't uncover who you are simply so you can feel confident, complete, or fulfilled. Though those things come as part of it. God reveals your identity because there is a kingdom purpose attached to it. Your identity carries divine assignment. It carries a voice that heaven intends to release into the earth. Every person is born with a purpose that transcends self, something that brings heaven's influence to earth in a way only they can. That's why discovering who you are in God is not an act of self-focus, it's an act of obedience. Your identity is not a reward for your effort, it's a responsibility for God's glory. When you begin to walk in your true identity, something powerful happens. Your life becomes a channel through which God touches others. Every gift you carry, every talent you've been given, every experience you've endured, even the pain you've overcome becomes a tool in God's hands. What you've been through is never wasted because it becomes a message for someone else who's still struggling. You start to see that your identity is not about personal comfort, but about kingdom impact. The freedom you find in Christ becomes contagious. People who encounter you start to see what faith looks like when it's lived out authentically, and something in them begins to awaken. God designed your identity to carry light, not the kind that draws attention to you, but the kind that points to him. Your true self, when surrendered to God, becomes a reflection of his nature. You were created to represent heaven's character on earth: love, grace, wisdom, truth, and power. When you live from that identity, miracles become natural, not forced. Things begin to shift around you because heaven recognizes authority when it sees it. You don't have to chase influence or recognition. You simply carry presence. People sense something different in you, peace that's unshakable, hope that doesn't fade, and love that feels supernatural. That's what happens when identity aligns with divine purpose. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is thinking that calling and identity are separate. But the truth is they are deeply connected. Your calling flows from your identity. If you don't know who you are, you'll spend your life trying to do things you were never designed to do. But when you finally see yourself through God's eyes, your purpose becomes clear. You stop asking, what should I do? And start realizing, this is who I am, and this is what I was created to release. God doesn't send you into the world empty-handed. He fills you with something unique that the world desperately needs. Every person has a sphere of influence, a place where your voice matters, your light shines, and your obedience carries impact. For some, it's a pulpit. For others, it's a classroom, a business, a hospital, a family, or even a quiet conversation with a friend. Wherever God places you, your identity becomes a vessel for his glory. That's why comparison is such a distraction. It causes you to doubt the specific anointing that God placed on your life. When you compare your path to someone else's, you lose sight of the unique purpose your identity carries. God didn't make you to be a copy. He made you to be a revelation. And this is where obedience becomes crucial. Sometimes walking in your true identity requires saying yes to uncomfortable assignments. It may lead you into places where you feel unqualified or unseen. But obedience to God always carries power beyond what you can see. Someone's breakthrough may depend on your willingness to say yes. The ripple effect of obedience is far greater than we imagine. When you step into who God called you to be, your faith becomes a spark that ignites faith in others. Your courage becomes their permission to believe again. A powerful example of this truth is seen in the story of Esther. She was a young woman who never sought power or fame. She was simply obedient to the process God placed her in. At first, she might not have even understood her purpose, but when the time came, her true identity as a chosen queen, positioned for influence, was revealed. She wasn't given that position for her comfort, but for her calling. Her identity carried kingdom purpose. When her people faced destruction, it was her courage, her obedience, and her faith in God that saved them. Esther's true identity was never about royalty in a palace. It was about rescue in God's plan. Her yes became the key to a nation's deliverance. The same is true for you. There are people on the other side of your obedience. There are hearts waiting to hear the sound of your story, lives waiting to see what it looks like when someone truly walks in God's purpose. Your identity is the answer to someone else's prayer. That's why the enemy fights so hard to keep you confused, insecure, or silent, because if you ever discover who you truly are in God, you'll become unstoppable. So remember this, your identity is not about applause, it's about impact. It's not about standing out to be seen, it's about standing firm to be used. You are called to carry light into darkness, to bring hope where there is despair, and to release faith where there is fear. You are heaven's representative on earth, chosen not by chance but by design. When you walk in that truth, your life becomes a living testimony, not of your strength, but of God's glory. And when God reveals your identity to the world, it won't be so others can celebrate you. It will be so others can see Him through you. That's the true purpose of identity, to carry the kingdom wherever you go. Your voice is needed, your faith is powerful, and your obedience is the bridge between heaven's intention and earth's transformation. So step forward with confidence. The world needs the light that only you can carry. So if you feel the stretching, the silence, the shaking, rejoice. It means your unveiling is near. God is not exposing you to shame you. He's revealing you to use you. He's about to remove every label that never belonged to you and replace it with His own signature, chosen, called, loved, anointed. Stand tall in this truth. Your identity is not emerging, it's being revealed. You are not who the world says you are. You are not even who you think you are. You are who God says you are. And the world is about to see it. This is your season of revelation. Heaven is about to introduce you to the world. Not that you shaped by fear, but that you refined by faith. Not that you defined by wounds, but that you designed by purpose. Get ready. God is about to show your true identity.